I am Assistant Divisional Officer, Grade 1, Aka Eswan Desmond, the Public Relations Officer for Ghana National Fire Service, Ashanti Region. This is the regional headquarters of Ashanti Regional Fire Office. Domestic fire outbreak is any undesired fire that occur in our domestic setting. That is where we have residential apartments. So any fire that tends to destroy lives and property, as well as the environment that occurs around our domestic setting, is termed as a domestic fire outbreak. The causes for such fires are many, but I will start off like this. Many a times, we tend to use materials that are not fire resistant in our construction. And anytime fire occurs in such settings, because the materials are not of any rating in terms of fire resistivity, they tend to collapse, they tend to burn off quickly, and they tend to give in to the fire as soon as possible. And that has dire consequences on the fire, especially with the spread of the fire, with the intensity of the fire, and the kind of destruction that may be experienced with respect to that fire. So first of all, the material for construction is a problem. And then secondly, we can also talk about the fact that people do not normally take good care of their naked light usage. When I talk about naked light usage, we have certain substances that give off light, or it gives off fire. For instance, mosquito coils, candles, and items like that. When people light them up, normally they place them closer to certain combustible materials that do easily burn. And when they come into contact, automatically the fires would occur. Apart from that, people also misuse and mishandle their LPG cooking apparatus, like the gas burners and the gas cylinders. When they are not properly handled, when you let the cylinders get closer to the cookers or the burners, a lot of heat is emanated or released onto the cylinders, and that could lead to explosions. Others too are very carefree when it comes to managing leakages on their LPG cooking apparatus. For instance, the tube delivering gas onto the burner may be punctured or may be leaking gas. The simple term is to check for leakage, but normally people will not do the leakage test, and therefore would allow naked light to get into contact with the leaked gas, and that could lead to devastating fire outbreak. And then the way people also fill their cylinders. Most of the times, people go to the filling point and they fill the cylinders to the max, that hardly do the cylinders have breathing spaces. Because it's a gas, we have to allow some breathing spaces within the cylinder. But people do not take that precaution and therefore overfill their cylinders. And even at the mercy of heat, the cylinders do get exploded. And that leads to some of these fire outbreaks. When you want to zoom into electrical appliances usage, others also tend not to take good care of their electrical appliances. They leave them on for a longer period. And you know, most of these appliances, as they work, they generate heat. And once you don't put them off when they are not needed, the heat, when it comes into contact with, let's say, loose curtains or any other combustible like fabrics or like paper products and other things, it can also start off fires. When you go to other people's premises, you would realize that they run cables, which under normal circumstance should, let's say, be trunked or maybe routed through a place where human interference will be very, very minimal. You see that these cables are left under, or they are run under carpet. And as you step on them, you move on them frequently, they lose the insulation lose their capacity to hold onto the conductors, and therefore could make the conductors bare and could spark off fires for that matter. And then apart from that, you would also realize that some of these electrical appliances, such as the deep freezers, the fridges, are normally left on for, let's say, for whatever reason, because of their nature. We would want to ensure, or just to let the public know, that these appliances do normally work by producing a lot of heat behind them. So what we expect people to do is that they shouldn't place them too close to the wall. But you realize that in most homes, you have curtains running behind them. And the fridges or the deep freezers are too close to the wall in such a way that when they produce heat, the accumulation of the heat could cut or could get into contact with the curtains, and that could start off fire. You go to most premises and the housekeeping there is very poor, in such a way that you see a lot of rodents, you see a lot of cockroaches and all that. It tells you that the housekeeping there, in terms of making sure there is proper arrangement and storage of combustibles and flammables, leaves much to be desired. A lot of cobweb build-up in most of the residential places that we find ourselves. These things actually do not start fires, but they can contribute to fires. For instance, if you have a lot of mice in your residential apartment, the tendency is that they could go into your ceiling or wherever they may find any wire which is not protected. They could chew off the insulation and the conductors could come together to spark off fire. And once there is sufficient heat from the sparks and it gets into contact with any combustible like curtains or wood product or paper product, it could start off fire. And that has been most causes of these fires in our domestic premises. For instance, other causes may include carelessness on the part of parents. They tend to place items like matches, lighters, and other things that could generate light or fire at the least usage at the hands or the mercy of these kids or children. And once for kids, they like to play with whatever thing that they come into contact with. So we advise that parents do keep such things out of their reach, and if possible, under lock, so that these kids do not have access to these items like matches, candles, mosquito coils that could also be used to play and generate a fire outbreak. The trend has been that most homeowners and even tenants, instead of seeking the advice of qualified electrician to do their electrical installation, would go and then talk to any amateur electrician to do their electrical installation, or even tamper with their existing installation. When that happens, it could lead to circuit overload or some short circuits or electrical fault, and that could result in a domestic fire outbreak. So we advise that homeowners and then residential or tenants should always seek the services of qualified electrical contractors so that they get their electrical installation works done. Aside that, we also want to advise that every homeowner should have a functional fire extinguisher and then smoke detector installed in their homes. We have realized that most of these deadly fires that claims lives, especially, do occur at night. And once we have these functional smoke detectors installed in our homes, and at night when these fires occur, they could alert us, and then the needed evacuation could be put in place as quickly as possible. We would also want to advise that homeowners should minimize the rate at which they use burglar proofing in safeguarding their property. Most of the times when these fires do occur, because of the nature and intensity of the fire, many people may be trapped as a result. So if we are going in for burglar proofing, we shouldn't also compromise safety. Therefore, we should look for the services of qualified people who can do an engineered type that could safeguard or that could facilitate safe evacuation during emergencies, so that no life will be lost during such times. Again, we would also want to advise that residents or homeowners should ensure that housekeeping is kept prominent, should be a priority, whereby they should pack their wares in such a way that there will be enough spaces in between. They shouldn't pack closer to each other, and they shouldn't even pack to the ceiling level. They should ensure that there are air spaces in between to take away any accumulated heat, so that depending on the kind of combustible or flammable material, it will not catch fire. And then if they spot any rodent activity such as mice and all that, they should try as much as possible to control their population so that they do not get out of hand to cause mayhem. And then also they should not allow rubbish to accumulate within their domestic premises. They should find ways and means to reduce rubbish accumulation. And even if possible, they would want to burn. They should ensure that they have a functioning waiting fire extinguisher there, so that if the fire should get out of hand, they quickly extinguish it. And then anytime you spot fire in your residential apartment, the first thing to do is to raise an alarm, but not to raise an alarm that will cause fear and panic to the extent that somebody may even lose his or her life, so that you alert. By that means, you alert everybody around that there is a fire outbreak, and therefore they initiate evacuation to a place of total safety. So once you are out on your way, or you are on your way out, what you do is that you call fire service immediately on any of our emergency line. The first to call is the 192. Wherever you may be in Ashanti region or any part of Ghana, you call 192. And then you take your time to give us the precise address or location of fire. You tell us your name, your house number, the nearest landmark to where the fire is occurring, and then you try as much as possible to come out to a safe place. You make sure everybody there comes out through the nearest exit within the premises to the total place of safety, whilst you wait for the fire service to come in to help you. And then on your way out, whilst embarking on the evacuation, if you can, if there are open windows or doors, we advise that if you can, you close them so as to minimize the amount of air inflows into the place where the fire has occurred. Because when you do that and there is limited air supply within the premises, it can also help us much by containing the fire so that it will not spread much. So that before the fire service come in, we could do much to safeguard the lives and property which is also there. And then also, if you have been given the needed training as to how best to use potable fire extinguishers, you are brave enough, you ensure that there is an exit, you leave an exit behind you, and then you use the potable fire extinguisher appropriately to extinguish the fire that you have seen. If the fire is too big for you, please leave the building and close the door behind you whilst you wait for fire service to come to your aid. Bushfire is termed as the controlled and uncontrolled burning of the natural vegetation or the bush, especially during the dry season where moisture content of this vegetative matter is very low and where fuels are more or less available, so that at the passage of any flammable front, that is when you light up any naked light or fire closer to it, it will burn. And you know, per our season for the bushfire, it starts from November way to the ensuing year, which is March. That is where we experience a lot of bushfires. During that time, the weather is very dry, the temperatures are also high, and therefore vegetation or the bush naturally lose their moisture content. There are a lot of dry vegetal matter available. And for that matter, when you get any naked light closer to them, they start the fire. And if care is not taken, the effect of that is so much that our waters get polluted, our air is also polluted. We tend to lose a lot of economic tree species that could have earned the country some foreign exchange for developmental projects. As far back as 2006, Ghana lost most of its forest cover in terms of GDP, about 6% to bushfires. So that is costing us a lot. So apart from the environmental damages, it is also destroying our farmlands, our cash crops. And if you look at even now, the government's initiative on planting for food and export, we as an organization mandated to take care of our forest resources in terms of managing fires when they occur, cannot leave any stone unturned, but to actually intensify our education, train the fire volunteers, ensure that the farm owners create fire belts, ensure that the farm attendants are also taken through some training to be able to create fire belts when they are supposed to, and to educate them as to best ways to burn their farms without creating unnecessary conditions for uncontrolled burning, so that there will be enough food, we would have quality air to breathe, and we will preserve our forests so that it can provide the various amenities that they are providing for us, such as oxygen, ensuring that we have good weather pattern, we have rainfall to feed our agricultural industry, etc. The causes of bushfires are generally put into two. We have the ones that are caused by the natural phenomenon, that is through volcanic eruption, through excessive radiation, and then through lightning activities and some other causes. And then you have the artificial causes, which are mainly anthropogenic, that is as a result of human activity. And most of these human activity are livelihood-based. So you find palm wine tappers going into the bush with their fagots to get some palm wine for their, let's say, their daily livelihoods. You would find some individuals going to hunt for wild honey using fire, and after getting their honey, they dump the fire anywhere, and then around this time, since the vegetative cover is dried enough, the fires do occur. Around this time too, you realize that certain ethnic groups tend to celebrate their festivals, and some of them use fire. And after setting fire into the bush, they tend not to extinguish the fires completely. And looking at the conditions now, the fires do get out of hand and they burn the natural vegetation as well. You would also realize that certain people, like charcoal burners, they also depend on the forest resources in making life meaningful. And as they burn their charcoals, sometimes they become careless with the naked light that they use, and that also burn the forest. Others too are into smoking. They go and hide in the bush, they smoke all kinds of materials. And after smoking, when it's left with the butt, the small piece, and they feel they are going to be burnt, they throw it anywhere. And once it gets into contact with the dry vegetative cover, then the bush also starts. Others too are also into game hunting. After getting their grass cutters, they forget about the fire that they use in getting their grass cutters. And therefore, the fires get out of hand and they also burn. Farmers, instead of them also cooking in the house and taking the food to the farm, they would rather prefer to go to the farm, cook, and after that become negligent, do not extinguish the fires that they use in cooking. And per the condition, the embers would also get into contact with dry vegetative matter, and then the fires will start. So these are major causes of bushfires, that is the natural and artificial causes. Over the years, what we as an organization have done well to do is to collaborate with livelihood empowerment NGOs to be able to empower our people who most of the time depend on the forest resources for their livelihood activities. So that instead of using naked light, those in the charcoal burning industry, those in the game hunting, those in the wild animal hunters, so that these NGOs could empower them so that such activities could be done in a controlled manner, like bee rearing, snail rearing, grass cutter, farming, and all that, so that it takes the pressure off the forest resources, especially with respect to the use of naked light in deriving all these goodies from the forest, but rather getting them on a very economical platform in the domestic setting, so that the pressure or the distraction that is caused onto our forest setting is reduced when that is done. And then also, if people can also put themselves together and then ensure that within their community setting, they will collaborate with fire service to ensure that anybody who sets fire into the bush is arrested and dealt with. It will also go a long way to curb the menace of the ritual, the annual ritual of the bush burning. Again, what we have been able to do successfully over the years is to train fire volunteer squads at the community level. What we normally do is to train them on creation of fire belts, so that fire belts are created around farming, farm lands or farming enclaves, so that in case there is any uncontrolled burning, those fires do get at the borders of where the fire belts have been created, and the fires are controlled naturally. And then also, we also teach them, or we train them on early control burning methods, so that before the onset of the dry season, people weed their farms and they burn them in a controlled manner where the fire volunteers are standing by, so that the fires do not get out of hand. And that is the kind of training that we have been giving them. We have also been motivating them enough to be able to help us to achieve this feat. So once the pressure is taken away from the use of naked light in making ends meet from the forest resources by way of the introduction of livelihood empowerment, by way of training them, building fire belts, and then also ensuring that early control burning are constantly done with, the fires will stop occurring at the bush. And therefore, the government's investment in the area of planting for food and export, there will be enough food for everybody to enjoy in the coming, let's say, months and years. In this Christmas season, our parents in our various homes would be cooking. They use electrical gadgets in their farm fare and all that. I would want to say that in all those activities, we should be careful. We should be extra vigilant in such a way that if we are not using these electrical appliances, we should switch them off, unplug them, and then also ensure that when we are leaving the home, at least there is somebody there to at least watch over, so that not everybody leaves the home at a particular point in time at the mercy of any fire or unforeseen or even an armed robber, so that if there is any security or safety threat with respect to fire, that person can easily call the fire service or even handle it with a fire extinguisher or a fire blanket. We would also want to advise that since a lot of activities are going to be embarked on, we should focus on doing one thing at a time. For instance, if you are doing ironing, don't be cooking at the same time, so that if there is a power cut, you will leave your iron unattended to, and then you go to the kitchen. By the time the light comes on, and let's say there's a problem, the iron falls on your ironing board, it can burn and the fire could start as a result. We should also take our time to inspect the plugs on all our electrical appliances, especially the fridges and deep freezers, to ensure that they are not showing any signs of burns on the prongs, so that if there is any issue with them, we can get a competent, qualified electrician to work on them so that it will not lead to any fire outbreak. If we have a lot of fuel loads around our premises, we should ensure that the ones that need to be disposed of, we dispose of them quickly, and then we ensure that the rest are also arranged in such a way that there will be enough ventilation around them so that it will not build excessive heat around them to cause any fire outbreak. If we also have rodent menace and then cobweb infested rooms and apartments, we should ensure that we remove them as quickly as possible. Once we live with our kids, we cannot be negligent of the fact that the candles, the mosquito coils, and other naked lights that could cause fire outbreaks, we cannot leave them at the mercy of these kids to play with them to cause fire. So we should keep them out of their reach, and if possible, under lock. And then also, since it's a Christmas season, and we are going to use a lot of electricity and equipment or items such as flickers or Christmas lights, we should ensure that these lights do not get into contact with any material that can easily burn, such as paper or curtain, so that the fires will be kept out of our bounds. We would also continually assure the public that once we are in the dry season, our intensified education is ongoing. The fire volunteer squads are up and doing. We are on our toes day and night, and we've trained a lot of these farm owners and then the farm hands such that the fire belts have been created, the early burnings have been done. What is now left for us to be extra vigilant so that anybody who takes naked fire to the bush or who set fire uncontrollably into the bush is quickly arrested and dealt with, so that we don't have this menace of bushfires. And we should always ensure that we don't mishandle naked light on the farms, and then also discourage people going to the bush to harvest for honey, to hunt for games using naked light. So once we are all up and doing, and then we will report these miscreants, I think we would have a very high success rate in combating domestic and then bushfires. To event organizers, I would also admonish you to involve the fire service in your event planning, such that we would be able to advise them on the number of exits to maintain at the event grounds, even their parking arrangement, and also the seating arrangement as well, so that there wouldn't be any hitch or any kind of stampede or anything that could endanger the lives, and even that could lead to any fire outbreak at the event grounds. Again, if for any reason an organization or an entity wants to engage or organize any fireworks activities, the doors of the fire service should be knocked so that we could perform some safety or risk assessment for them and be on standby to deal with anything that could go untoward as a result of the fireworks. We want to entreat the public that our doors are always opened, our emergency numbers and lines are always active. Do not hesitate to call us when the need arises. It is not only fire that we do manage. We do also manage road accident collisions. When there are accidents on the road, the first point of call should be the fire service. If somebody is trapped in whatever situation, the first point of call should be the Ghana National Fire Service, so that when you call us early enough, we can also respond on time to be able to save any life that may be at risk, and also safeguard any property, and also to be able to protect the environment from the effect of the ravages of fire. So our emergency line is 192 for the region and even beyond. Apart from 192, you can also reach us on 050 500 1415. 050 500 1415. The trick is that call us early enough once you spot the fire, so that we can also respond to you as quickly as possible, because we exist to serve you. Without you, we are non-existent, and we know that you are going to help us to have a very effective and fire-free Christmas season. On this occasion, I would want to say a very Merry Christmas to my regional fire commander and all hard-working fire officers and firefighters, for who throughout the year have sacrificed their lives to save lives and to safeguard property, as well as to protect the environment through the ravages of fire. I say that may the good Lord continue to bless us and then keep us safe till next year, 2020. I hope that 2020 we are going to have less fire outbreaks, less road traffic collisions, less environmental damages, less property damages, so that we would all enjoy life, and then Ghana would have, or will be, the peaceful place or haven that we've all been praying for. Merry Christmas and a prosperous Happy New Year in advance.